Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General Bondi, good to see you. Welcome. I've been listening closely in this hearing, and I've heard over and over from my Democrat colleagues concerns about targeting political enemies, and they've accused you of all manner of things and the current president. I've also heard them said, and I just wrote it down because I wanted to be sure I heard it correctly. I've heard them say that Joe Biden never targeted his political enemies. Joe Biden never directed his attorney general to target his political opponents. That's interesting, because I could have sworn that yesterday we learned that the FBI tapped my phone. Let's look at it. We've got a list. Tapped my phone, tapped Lindsey Graham's phone, tapped Marsha Blackburn's phone, tapped 5 other phones of United States senators.
This is a heated debate between Senator Josh Hawley and Attorney General Pam Bondi from a Senate Judiciary hearing, where both clashed over one major issue: the alleged weaponization of the Department of Justice over phone tapping, over political targeting, over the question of whether power inside the DOJ has been used for politics instead of justice. Josh Hawley, the Republican senator from Missouri, came armed with sharp accusations and documents, claiming that under the previous Biden administration, the Department of Justice crossed the line that it spied on political opponents, targeted conservative groups, and even tapped the phones of sitting senators, including himself, Lindsey Graham, and Marsha Blackburn. He demanded transparency, full investigation, and accountability, saying this cannot happen again under any administration.
Gee, it sure looks like targeting political opponents to me, and yet I haven't heard a word from that side of the dais about any concern whatsoever. We've got nothing but concerns today, but no concern at all for a Justice Department that is tapping the phones of sitting United States senators because who knows why. They don't like them. They're members of the opposition party. They're Republicans. They're conservatives. You've seen this document, Attorney General Bondi. Well, what was going on here? Who ordered this? Who ordered the tapping of the phones of United States senators?
Senator Hawley, I cannot discuss the details of that right now for very good reason.
You're going to do a thorough investigation into this, I trust. Is that correct?
We will be looking at all aspects of this, and I have talked to Director Patel at length about this.
And you're going to figure out who was involved in this, who signed off on it, who knew about it. You're going to get to the bottom of all of it. Is it correct?
Yes, and I've spoken to Director Patel about it, and he is committed to doing this.
Well, I can tell you, we already know many of the details. We already know that this was ordered by the special prosecutor, Jack Smith, who reported directly to the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland. And we know that Jack Smith was on his witch hunt because he was directed to do so by the President of the United States, Joe Biden. Let's just remember. Let's take a walk down memory lane. April 2nd, 2022, the New York Times. Garland faces growing pressure. The Times says as recently as late last year, that would have been 2021, Mr. Biden confided to his inner circle he believed former President Trump was a threat to democracy and should be prosecuted. It goes on to say that Biden was frustrated with Garland and wanted him to take decisive action
Pam
against
Bondi,
Trump.
the Attorney General,
Here's what
now
we're talking
defending
about.
the DOJ's
Trump, of
conduct,
course, was a private citizen
rejected
at the time.
idea that political
So he
weaponization continues under
his
her
own
watch,
hitman,
saying that
Jack
era
Smith,
is
who
over,
goes after
and the department has
former
returned
president,
to
who
its
goes after
original mission,
members of this body.
fighting violent
the thing
crime
about it, though, that
and
really strikes
enforcing
me
law
is that
without
it didn't
bias.
stop with members of the United
She
States
promised
Senate.
a review of past actions
Did it, Attorney
and
General Bondi.
insisted
It didn't
that the
stop
new
here at all.
leadership
Just as
stands for
egregious, maybe
fairness,
more so
not
than
politics.
tapping the phones of U.S. senators
Hawley's
is this
central
memo that I
claim
know
was
you've seen
direct.
before. Let's just look at it again.
They tapped
this
my
is an
phone.
FBI memo
They
from the
tapped
same
other
time
senators'
period,
phones.
I might add.
He
From the
connected
same
this
time
to a
period,
wider pattern,
in which the
saying
Federal
the
Bureau of
DOJ went after
Investigation attempts to
pro-life
recruit
organizations,
informants into
Catholic
terrorists in this
institutions, conservative
So here you have an
advocacy
administration
groups,
that is
and even
activating the
parents who
FBI
spoke
against
at
its
school
political
board
opponents and
meetings.
tapping the
He
phones
argued that
of
law
United States
enforcement
senators.
had been used as a
Can I just say
political
that again for
weapon
my colleagues,
instead
for
of
the
a
benefit of my
neutral
colleagues on the other
institution
side
of
of the dais?
justice?
Tapping the phones
That's why he
of
demanded
United
a
States
special
senators.
prosecutor,
This isn't
full
hypothetical.
oversight hearings,
This isn't maybe
and the
what will
names
you do
of
in the
those who
future.
approved
This
these
isn't, oh gee,
operations.
can you imagine the situation? This happened. This happened. And this happened, the targeting of Catholics in this country because Joe Biden and his FBI didn't like Catholics who went to a certain kind of mass. I mean, good God in heaven, what is happening to this country? What happened under Joe Biden? Or then how about this, the infamous school board memo, where Merrick Garland, at the direction of the White House, issued a memo activating the FBI's counterterrorism division against parents who attended school board meetings and had the temerity to ask what their kids were being taught. And some of those parents were treated like this. Let's just remember. Let's remember how parents were treated. Treated like this man. That's right. A parent at a school board meeting, I think in Virginia, who was drug out of the school board meeting. He's bloodied there. You can see it. And what was the response of Joe Biden's DOJ and FBI? It was to issue a memorandum saying that people like this ought to be investigated by the counterterrorism unit. And unbelievably, they were. They were. Or how about this? Let's remember Mark Houck and the pro-lifers who were prosecuted for what? For going to a clinic, an abortion clinic, and praying on a sidewalk outside the abortion clinic. This is Mark Houck and his beautiful family at Mass. This man, at the direction of Joe Biden's FBI, this man had an FBI SWAT team come to his door in the early morning hours with his beautiful children there, terrorizing them with weapons drawn.
His strength lies in the clarity and passion of his charges and the demand for accountability. But the weakness in his case is the lack of full public evidence, since many disclosures are reported but not officially confirmed. Bondi, on the other hand, handled the pressure strategically. She admitted the allegations are serious and must be examined, but reminded senators that the DOJ under her leadership has focused on results: thousands of arrests, illegal guns seized, and major operations against cartels. She stressed that her goal is to restore trust and efficiency, not to repeat the mistakes of the past. She promised to consult with both the DOJ and FBI to review the claims thoroughly. Her strengths were her calm tone, reliance on data, and focus on reform. But her weakness was avoiding some direct questions about who approved the controversial actions. In the first place, critics say her answers sound more administrative than investigative, and some wonder if the reforms are real change or just a new face on an old problem. The claim about phone tapping is extremely serious, because if true, it means the boundaries between politics and law enforcement were blurred. Hawley cites newly disclosed records suggesting the FBI accessed phone metadata of multiple senators. But what's still unclear is the chain of command.
He was then arrested and prosecuted. Unfortunately, a jury acquitted him. This is what was happening under Joe Biden. United States senators spied upon, former presidents, the political opponents of the president at the time, targeted, prosecuted. Pro-lifers, targeted, prosecuted. Catholics, targeted, prosecuted. 92 conservative organizations put under surveillance, targeted for potential prosecution. Gee, I don't know. Would you call that an example of weaponization, Attorney General Bondi? Do you think that's a fair characterization?
Senator Hawley, that is the ultimate weaponization. And weaponization under Donald Trump has ended. It has ended. Harmeet Dillon is running our civil rights unit, and she is doing an incredible job. No longer will parents be targeted. No longer will parents who care about whether their elementary school children have to read a transgender book be targeted and told they cannot have any say in their child's education. That has ended under this administration. People can worship freely, whether they're Catholics at synagogues or Muslims. Everyone can worship freely. That was the ultimate weaponization. They were targeting Catholics. No longer. They have been targeting so many American citizens throughout this country. And Senator Hawley, you have been a champion of this, and thank you for being a champion of that. But under Donald Trump's watch, it has ended.
You know, I think about some of the abuses of power in this country's history, and there's been sadly a lot of them by members of the executive branch over the years, whether it's Watergate, whether it's what J. Edgar Hoover did in his time at the FBI, spying on many public figures, RFK, MLK, JFK, you name it.
Who authorized it, under what law, and how deep it went. Bondi's data points, like 3,800 arrests in Washington, D.C., or 23,000 guns seized, come from her prepared DOJ statements. And while they sound impressive, they don't directly answer the oversight question. Her reforms, reassigning grants, ending political programs, are real steps, but Congress and inspectors general will determine how effective they truly are. Both sides are strong in rhetoric. Hawley speaks the language of outrage and accountability, while Bondi speaks the language of restoration and reform. The real test lies not in words, but in transparency evidence, and whether anyone is actually held responsible. So in the end, Hawley raises the alarm that political abuse of justice must be punished, while Bondi claims she's rebuilding a fair system. But neither side has proven its case completely. Yet the truth will depend on documents, investigations, and how much of it becomes public. And that brings us to one critical question. If future evidence proves that phone tapping and political targeting were ordered from the top, should those officials face criminal punishment, or is structural reform and transparency enough to rebuild public trust?